Hey everyone, this is Andy with Patterson Adjuster Training. In this video, I wanted to talk to you about additional living expense, also known as loss of use coverage. I was talking to somebody this week about hurricane season starting, and one of the things that new adjusters struggle with a little bit working hurricanes is ALE, or additional living expense coverage. We won't focus on renters policies, commercial policies, rental dwelling policies, or anything like that, just a standard homeowner policy. You're the policy expert, you're the insurance expert. Your job isn't to find a way to deny the claim. Your job is to look at the loss, apply the policy, and find every available insurance benefit in their policy to pay the claim. Be familiar with your insurance policy so you can answer questions for your policyholder. So what ALE pays for, it pays the reasonable and necessary expenses incurred by a policyholder to maintain their normal lifestyle. There are limits to payments. Generally speaking, there's about 4 limitations that could apply. The shortest or the least of the following. Your home's restored, you can move back in. You move to a different house. The 12 or 24 month time limit has happened, or you've reached the policy limits. So the 3 things actually that you're going to want to really dial in on your investigation is, do we have a covered loss? Did the covered loss cause the home to be uninhabitable? And what is the time frame to restore the damaged home or the damaged property? So a common scenario that you'll see a lot, especially with hurricanes approaching, is that the hurricane comes ashore, knocks out power to the entire city. So you have somebody who really doesn't have any damage to their house, but they think, I'm not going to stay in my house, it's too hot, which I don't blame them. I wouldn't be there either. So they go across town in a hotel. While they're in the hotel, they call the claim in, and they want to send in their hotel receipts for coverage under the policy. So the first thing you'll want to figure out is, do we have a covered loss? The only claim that the policyholder is making is just for their hotel expenses. Let's say there's no damage to their home, and they have $2,300 in hotel bills that they want to be reimbursed for. So most homeowner policies, when dealing with ALE coverage, it's pretty specific. Most of them say, when a loss insured or a covered loss causes the home to be uninhabitable. So let's stop right there. The only damage to the home was it was without power, no electricity. That's not a covered loss. The whole city was out of power. There isn't a loss that caused the home to be uninhabitable. It's just loss of power. So ALE would not be available, wouldn't be covered under that situation. Now, let's change the scenario. So a hurricane hits, knocks out power to the city. It blows the entire roof off the policyholder's home. Water comes in, all the ceilings are in the floor, and there's 4 inches of water in every room. Obviously, that is not a habitable house. It's not livable. What caused it to be unlivable? Well, the roof being tore off, the rainwater coming in, the ceilings caving in. Is that a covered loss under the homeowner's policy in most cases? Yeah, it is. The damage to the dwelling would be covered, so that would be a covered loss that caused the home to be uninhabitable. So that would be where you could extend ALE coverage. Then what you would want to do is, as soon as possible, you'll want to find out the normal monthly expenses that the policyholder had. The other important thing you'll want to get in front of is the time frame to restore the property. Hopefully the insured has picked out a general contractor, and you can coordinate with the general contractor on how long they believe it's going to take to restore the property or to repair the property. Now, I will tell you, when you're dealing with a hurricane, general contractors and contractors are in short supply. So it may take them several weeks to get out there and even do an estimate. It may take them a couple of months to even start the repairs. It'll be a case-by-case basis. It's not one size fits all. In addition to that, materials are in short supply during COVID and the pandemic, labor was in short supply as well. So that'll be another factor that will affect the time frame to restore or replace damaged property. The one thing to keep in mind is don't assume that since ALE doesn't apply immediately after the loss, it's not ever going to apply to that claim. You could have a situation where you have some damage in a kitchen, you have damage to a couple of bathrooms and a dining room, and the insured can live in the house, and they are living in the house. It may be uncomfortable, inconvenient, but it's not unlivable, it's not uninhabitable. But when the contractor gets in there and starts tearing drywall off, pulling insulation out, it's going to stir up a lot of dust, and it may make the home unlivable while the contractor's in there doing the repairs. The contractor may say, well, once we start the repairs, we need them out for the entire 3 months that it's going to take to repair the home. Or the contractor could say, we need them out of the house for these 3 weeks. Well, in that case, the covered loss caused the home to be uninhabitable through the repair process, and so ALE would be available for that time frame. So keep that in mind. Even though ALE doesn't apply initially, it could apply down the road depending on the scope of the repairs. Now, what you'll want to do as soon as possible is figure out what the insured spends to maintain their normal lifestyle. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means like, what do they spend on electricity? What do they spend on groceries? What do they spend on eating out? What do they spend on pet supplies? What do they spend on water, utilities, so forth and so on? You'll want to get all of that documented as soon as you can, because if you are haphazard on the front end of ALE, it gets away from you super quick. And once it gets away from you, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to get that back on track. Trust me, you want to get everything you need up front, that you're not scrambling for information, because when the insureds don't get their money, they get upset, which they should. They have this extra expense from being out of their house. They don't want to wait 3 or 4 months for a payment. They expect when they send them their receipts, you to have everything ready to send them what they're owed under the policy. Most large insurance carriers have housing vendors that can help you out with the temporary housing. After a hurricane, you're going to have a city that has been affected. Lots of hotels are without power. Maybe some of them are flooded. They're damaged and they can't have people in their hotels. They're not open for business. So you've got limited hotel availability. Then you've got people that are displaced from major damage to their home. Then you've got people that are displaced because electricity's out and they want to go somewhere cool. So you've got a supply and demand issue. So what will happen is you're going to call the housing vendor and give them the information on the policyholder. And what happens is you have no availability. So the policyholder may have to stay in a hotel 2 hours away. Once power starts getting restored, a lot of the people that went to hotels because their power was out, they start going back home. Then you get a lot of hotels that have the power coming back on. So they start opening for business. As supply frees up and demand goes down, they try to get them into a rental property or an apartment, or at bare minimum, a hotel with a kitchenette or something like that. That's what they try to do, is try to get them back closer to home in more of a long-term situation. So I'm gonna get my whiteboard and give you some examples of what an ALE abatement payment may look like. And so basically what we're looking for is the increased cost in the insured's monthly expenses to maintain their normal standard of living. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take what they normally spent and then what they're spending now, and you're going to pay them the difference for that abatement. Now keep this in mind too, the insured has to incur the expense, then get reimbursed for it. So if you have a policyholder who moves in with their sister or their brother-in-law, and the brother-in-law or the sister doesn't charge them anything, there wouldn't be anything owed because the insured's not out of pocket. There's no increase in cost for them. So we've got monthly expenses here. These are just examples. This is pre-loss, or before the loss occurred, and this is after the loss. All right, so we've got temporary housing. When the policyholders were at home and they lived in the house, they didn't have an extra expense of a hotel. So that's why that one's 0. Now, when they were at home before the loss happened, policyholder says they were spending about $400 a month in groceries or food at home. Eating out, they were a fairly frugal family. They only spent $200 eating out every month before the loss happened. Dry cleaning, policyholders have a laundry room, so they weren't spending very much on dry cleaning or laundry expenses. They were spending $50 a month. And then electric, they were spending $300 a month. So the subtotal that they were spending per month at home on these expenses was $950. Now, after the loss occurred, they have a hotel bill now because they have to have some temporary housing. So the housing vendor got them hooked up with a hotel, and it was $150 a night. So that ended up being $4,500 for the month. All right, so food at home, they have a kitchen in the hotel that they were staying in, so they spent about the same. Now, since they were further away from their house because they couldn't get a hotel closer to their home, they ended up doing a lot more eating out. So their eating out bill or food away from home went up $150. Since they don't have exclusive access to the hotel's laundry room, they have to share it with all the other tenants. They ended up spending more money being displaced because they didn't have full access or exclusive access to the hotel's laundry room. They have to share it with other people. So they ended up going to a dry cleaners more. And then electric, you wouldn't think this would go up. Since the policyholder's house was under renovation, you had the contractors there running power tools and all kinds of power equipment. And so their electric bill went up $150. Subtotal $5,850, okay? So we'll just say this was June 1st through June 30th, $4,900. That was the increased cost to maintain their normal standard of living, their normal lifestyle. So that's what the abatement payment would be for June. That's kind of a very simple example of how ALE applies. If you get deployed to a hurricane, review your policy. You're the insurance professional. Do you have a covered loss? Did that covered loss cause the home to be uninhabitable, not uncomfortable? What's their normal monthly expenses before the loss? And then what the increase is as they go along. And, very important, stay in touch with the contractor and the policyholder on the time frame to repair. So if the contractor says, man, due to material shortages, labor shortages, I'm not going to be able to get this house repaired 4 months. Then they'll give you a range, generally from 4 to 6 months. Well, chances are you're going to need to request authority. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to project out so you can adjust your reserves and have that money set back. That way you can have that money available when you need it and not have to ask your manager for money every month, to request authority every month. Managers don't like it when you put extra work on them. But anyway, that's all I've got for you today. I will see you in the next video.